Welcome to the first video from our Fred Olsen Balmoral Scenic Norwegian Fjords in 5 nights cruise, which was scheduled to travel from Rosyth in Scotland to Ulvik and Haugesund in Norway before returning to Rosyth. Our day began with a drive to Rosyth cruise port, which is only 30 minutes from our house. I've put a guide to the cruise port on our channel, so I'll just cover the basics here. We pulled up in the car park, where we dropped our luggage, parked and got the shuttle bus to the port. And a few minutes later, we were dropped at the cruise terminal. Inside, we had a short queue for security, then a relatively easy check-in. And then we walked around the wind turbines that are currently taking up the port parking. And we got a good look at the ship. We were looking forward to cruising on Balmoral again. We've been on her before, back in 2023, but she's recently been refitted, and we were eager to get on board and have a look around. Then we were going up the ramp and on board the ship, after what had been a very quick and easy boarding process. The first thing we did was head to our cabin on deck 4 to get rid of our bags, and I'll quickly show you round while we're here. We'd booked an inside twin with beds fixed in an L configuration, which we didn't mind too much on a relatively short cruise. The cabin is a bit old-fashioned and tired in places, but it was kept very clean and the beds were comfy. Among the cruise info on the desk was our table allocation for main dining, and we'd been put on a table for 6. We tried to avoid shared tables while vlogging, so we went and spoke to the maitre d', but there were no tables for 2 available. This wasn't a major problem, we just didn't film much in the main restaurant, but if you're not happy with your table, it's always worth asking at the beginning of the cruise, as they can often help. The cabin has plenty of storage in these mirror-fronted wardrobes. And the bathroom, though also a bit old-fashioned, has all the basics you need. A toilet, a sink and a decent shower. We then watched the safety video on the TV, before heading up to our muster station, which was on deck 7 in the Neptune lounge. With the pre-departure essentials completed, we went outside on prom deck. First, taking a look around the cruise terminal and the wind turbines in the car park. At the time of this video, you have to park a mile from the terminal, but they do run shuttle buses to and from the port. Then we walked around to the front of the ship. Balmoral has a full wraparound prom deck, which is nice, but we missed the open forecastle that you get on the Belletta and Borealis. We carried on around the prom, taking in the views around the port. Then we reached the stern, where we had a look at the 4th bridges that we'll be sailing out under later. Then we went up to deck 8 and got our first drink of the cruise from the Lido bar. Then back down to the Thistle restaurant, or the buffet, to get a snack for afternoon tea. There was a decent selection on offer, and the food was very tasty. And after we'd eaten, we went back down to our cabin to see if our luggage had arrived, admiring the many first visit plaques that Balmoral has collected over the years. Our second case had turned up, so we unpacked. Unfortunately, one case didn't fit under the bed, so it got to live behind the chair for this trip. By now, we both fancied a drink, so we took a lift up to deck 11 and the observatory bar, where Suze had the cocktail of the day and I had a nice glass of Shiraz, which were followed by a pint of bitter and a Chilean Chardonnay, while we enjoyed music from the ship's string trio. It was getting close to sail away time, so we went outside on deck to see what was happening. There were tugboats hooked up to the ship to help with manoeuvring. And we slowly turned around in the river. Then we set off away from the port with a tugboat in tow. And pretty soon, we were coming up on the first of the 3 Forth bridges. The views from the ship and passing under these is a definite highlight of departing from Rosyth. I'll show a decent bit of the sail away here, but probably upload a longer version of the sail out and sailing down the Forth to our channel in the near future. As we passed underneath the second bridge, we noticed there were people standing and waving, so we waved back. We were then heading towards what most people think of when they mention the Forth Bridge, the 1890 rail bridge. And we were lucky enough to spot a train crossing as we approached. Passing under this was really cool. We'd been to both ends many times before, but this is definitely the best way to see it. And once we were clear of the bridges, our tug disconnected. We assume it's there to keep the ship in line as it passes underneath. And then we carried on down the Forth, passing by the islands and lighthouses. Eventually, we decided to go inside and get dinner. We'd missed our 6 PM dining time, so we went to the buffet, which is a nice experience on Fred Olsen. And you get seated at a laid table with good drink service. There was a nice selection to choose from. I ended up with an eclectic mix of pasta, beef short rib, stir fry and chicken, and Sue said pasta and a selection of salads. The dessert selection was pretty good as well. I ended up with a plate of cheese and crackers and some Black Forest Gatto. And Sue's had a couple of tasty little cakes. After a nice dinner, we went through to the Neptune Lounge to watch the show, which tonight was Glitter and Groove. We had an introduction to our cruise director. Then the showcast put on a really fun show, with some good singing and dancing, featuring plenty of disco and Motown classics. After the show, we went outside on prom deck for a walk, as it was a beautiful evening. And we made our way to the front of the ship. where we were treated to some beautiful late evening views. We went back inside to the Morning Light pub, where the guitar vocalist was playing. He was quite good, so we ordered a couple of drinks and settled down to enjoy the music. And once we'd finished our drinks, we decided to go and check out the supper club in the buffet. There were some tasty options on offer, and we each enjoyed a varied plateful. We then took a slow wander back through the ship. And back down to our cabin on deck 4. Where our beds had been turned down, with chocolates on the pillow and a daily programme. Day 2 began in the Bookmark Cafe, with a seat by the window and a nice view out over the sea. There's a good selection of hot drinks available for an upcharge. Unfortunately, these are not covered by the beverage package, although you can buy a coffee card. Suze had a pot of tea, and I had an Americano, with shortbread on the side. We then went for a wander around the prom deck, and as the sign says here, 4 laps is 1 mile. However, we had plans, so we took a detour into the buffet to get another drink from the tea and coffee station. There's a good selection of tea available, as well as filter coffee. We then went through to the Neptune Lounge, where we took a seat and waited for the first of the day's enrichment talks. This was Life in Norway by David Nichol, who has a really good website and YouTube channel on this topic. And today he gave us a talk about our destinations, life in Norway, a brief taste of the language, the food, and the rather depressing weather forecast for our upcoming ports. Following a very interesting talk, we carried on with our walk on the prom deck. And after doing another lap, we put our cups back in the buffet and took the opportunity to have a look around here while it was quiet. This is one of the main areas that has been upgraded during the recent refit, and it's been done really nicely. The buffet has a really bright and airy feel to it, and there's plenty of seating considering the size of the ship. It was almost lunchtime now, and we wanted to try out the main dining room. So we joined a queue at the Bloomsbury restaurant, and we were soon seated. Lunch here is a combination of buffet and table service, and to be honest, we didn't enjoy it as much as a full-service restaurant. Service felt quite disjointed, and we ended up eating our food separately. Suze decided to eat from the buffet, and had the usual eclectic mix. I ordered from the menu and had cod with risotto. And then I finished with crumble and custard. The food was nice, but the overall experience was just okay, We went for a post-lunch drink in the morning light, where the guitar vocalist was playing again. I had a pint of bitter, and Suze had a cider. And we decided to catch up on some reading while we were here. Then a little later, we took our drinks through to the Neptune Lounge to see another enrichment talk by Dr. Graham Davis, who told us about the early Viking colonisation of the American continent. We then went to destination services and queued for tender tickets for tomorrow's port, as if you wanted to get off in the morning, you needed to reserve a time. Then we changed for formal night and went back to the Neptune Lounge for the captain's cocktail party, where we were offered drinks and then canapes. There was music and dancing, and then some more drinks. Then the captain introduced us to the ship's officers, and after the party we joined a rather long queue for the main dining room, which quickly dispersed as everyone had assigned seating. And we got our first look at our shared table, and we met our table mates, who were a very pleasant couple. For starter, I had the smoked salmon parcel, and Suze had consommé. And for mains, we both had the filet mignon, which was really nice. And to finish, I had the cheese plate. And Suze had caramel popcorn sundae. And after a very pleasant meal, we went for a wander by the shops and had a look at what was on offer. Then we headed up to the observatory for an evening drink. I had a go of the ship's glasses, and we sat and watched the sea on a rather grey evening. I had a glass of Shiraz, and Suze had a Chilean Chardonnay. Then Suze switched to cider, and we sat and listened to the pianist for a while. And a couple of drinks later, we were done for the evening, and we headed to bed. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we're visiting Ulvik.